Off the Groove with Scotty Dubler.
November 13th, 2020, episode number 160.
It is Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, just after Halloween. It's pretty solid. I always love Friday the 13th.
I thought you loved Halloween.
I love Halloween, which Friday the 13th is very Halloweenish, so...
Okay. Are you dressing up?
No, I don't. No, only Halloween. Well, unless there's like some crazy thing that you need to dress up for, but no.
Okay.
I have no plans to dress up for this this Friday the 13th.
Episode 160, Carter.
160.
That is a huge number.
That means we've done this 160 times.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Coming up on it. It's like a couple episodes away, actually.
And guess what?
What?
I'm coming down to see you this weekend.
Let's talk about that.
Are we going to celebrate our third anniversary or what?
Let's get into that. Yeah, so you had plans to come down. There was a trip that we were going to plan to take. Didn't pan out, but that's okay. It might happen eventually. It's not canceled, just postponed. And we're probably still going to be doing some stuff. But you had planned to come along, but you're still going to come down. We're still going to do some content. We're still going to make some stuff for our patrons. You're going to come down. We're going to have fun. I told you I'm going to take you paddleboarding. You've never been paddleboarding.
I've never done that.
And I got paddle boards that I bought for Christmas last year that I haven't used yet. Got to use this year. So we're going to bust those out. We're going to go have some fun on the water. And we're going to get some stuff done made for our patrons and maybe some other things that we won't talk about just yet.
You never know. So
you never.
I'm
do
excited.
know.
I can't wait. It's November. It's actually decent weather here in Oklahoma right now after the ice storm has moved through. But I'm ready to come down there. Hopefully, there's no gators in the water. You take me out on the paddleboard, and I can get some good seafood in me.
Yes.
And just hang out with you and Winnie Cooper
and Boo.
And Boo.
There you go.
And of course the cat.
Ziggy.
We don't talk about Ziggy Marley too much, but
it's not Ziggy Marley. It's just Ziggy. Yeah, dude, it'll be a good time. Always a good time hanging out with the Dubes. And I look forward to making some of the content we're gonna make. So let's get into this week's episode. Cause
hold on a second.
What?
Hold on a second. I want to say thanks to Dale Jones. Dale Jones listens to our podcast. He also listens to that other one, that tank slapping one.
Yes, he does.
But he listens to them while he runs, and he said it makes the time go by faster. So he says most of the time the episodes are around an hour, so he knows when the episode's done, he can head back home. So Dale Jones supporting our podcast, man, thanks a lot.
Absolutely, and I was definitely going to get into that. Like it's unreal when people in those kind of roles, with that kind of experience are liking what we're doing and support us. So shout out to Dale Jones, shout out to the whole AFT crew, but Dale Jones especially, man. He called and I talked to him we bench raced for 2 hours, and I've never even thrown a leg over a bike. I'm bench racing with somebody like Dale Jones. It was super cool. And
for those that don't know, Dale Jones is a tech official with the AFT staff, and he's been there for a long time. He used to race. He was number 10K, and he was also Davey Camlin's best friend, and he traveled with Davey until the end of his career.
Not only him, there's some really good stories on the competition side there at AFT, so hopefully we'll get some of them on. Dale Jones himself, Daryl Brentlinger is another one that is really good. Hopefully we'll be bringing those guys on in the months ahead and letting them tell their stories, because they're badass stories for sure.
And they do it because they love the sport.
100%, maybe 90%, because you gotta make money. But anyways, well, let's get into this week's episode, dude, because holy shit, it's a doozy.
So we've actually going to have two guests.
Yeah.
And there's an upcoming event out in Sonoma, California next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. I believe it's the 19th and 20th.
Yep.
Maybe the 20th and 21st. Anyways, next weekend out in Sonoma. The first ever AMA all adaptive race.
That's so cool.
So when we started thinking about this, the first person that came to mind is our buddy Racing Jason Griffin, who's trying to change his nickname.
Is he really trying to change? I love it. Why?
Yeah,
change it?
he told us on the last podcast.
Oh, it was like
he's
lightning or something.
Else. Lightning.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or something. It was a lightning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think so. So we'll see. Maybe we'll make a deal with him while we have him on the phone. So I think we call him up first.
Yep.
And see a little bit more information about the race.
100%. Always good to talk to Racing Jason Griffin, or whatever we're going to call him in the near future, if he wants to change the name to Lightning or whatever it is. He's Jason. We'll just call him Jason for now. You want to give him a call?
Dial him up.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Racing Jason.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Nothing. What are you doing?
I am tearing apart motorcycles. Believe that.
You're tearing them apart. Are we racing next weekend?
Yeah. Well, this is different. This is a hooligan bike and a 450 that I've been helping this kid out race. Got a lot of talent. Levi Robinson. He's got a lot of natural ability. I've got good things for him. What you been up to, man? How's everything been going?
It's pretty good. It's kind of quiet on the home front. I guess haven't done much. I guess since the Daytona season finale, I did Bubba Blackwell's jump the weekend after down there in Laurel, Mississippi, and then since then, not a whole lot's been going on. I'm excited to talk to you because I'm hearing great big things about this big race coming up next weekend. First time ever, AMA flat track all adaptive race. How cool is that, man?
Sherman Lee has been he's been spearheading it. He's going to be competing, and we talked. I joked about him. I guess he called me. I don't know. Probably we've been back and forth for the last couple of years. And it finally just came to be, and I guess it's been about a year. And he called out, and I just forgotten about it. I said, who put that crazy idea in your head? He said, you did, man. Appreciate it. He said, you coming? I was like, yeah, let's do it. I said, from South Carolina, let's get it. Let's go to California.
So it's in Sonoma.
It's good, man.
It's in Sonoma. Do you know about the track? Have you seen the track?
No. We are maybe similar to Paris, and maybe similar to. I'm not exactly sure. Somebody said it was similar to Paris, which I've never competed in either one of those. So I'm going to go by. I think Sherman is near. He's a few hours from there, and I think he's pretty familiar with the track. So we've got I think 15 athletes. And
wow.
Yeah, listen, Mert Lawwill has kicked in with some sponsorship. Rod Lake, Dallas, Dallas Roofing Systems. They kicked in, and Sherman's doing all this. We did a little GoFundMe, like a GoFundMe page, and we just been raising money to put together for the athletes. This is the first time this has ever been done. And I was talking to Sherman. I said, nobody's ever done this. This is going to be cool. And the more I think about it, the more excited I get. It's going to be cool, man. And hopefully we can do it every year. I think this might, if we can keep it going, I think it'll be great.
What bike you riding? Your 450? Or you're going to ride your big hooligan bike?
No. I'm gonna put the Ducati out there.
Oh yeah.
That Ducati, man. That thing is just. That thing is smooth. It just handles good. It's easy to ride. So it makes me look fast. I'll take it.
You don't have anything to make you look fast. You are fast, dude. Do you know if it's going to be covered anywhere? Can we watch it, or how can we pay attention to it? Should we just watch Facebook?
We're going to stream it on Facebook Live, just like it's Jason Griffin Racing. And let's see. Sherman just texted me, and he said, let's see here. The race will be streamed online at X as in Zebra, S as in Superstar, R as in Radical, and A as in Awesome .tv or XSRA.tv.
Perfect.
That's something new to me. I've never heard of those guys. You?
Nope, not me either. But I was looking at the GoFundMe page, and Rue Systems of Dallas, Texas, Rod Lake Racing, Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys, Lang Bros Leathers, Alamo Alarm Company, which they support the Lodi Cycle Bowl in Sacramento, and a host of others, and like you said, all the GoFundMe stuff. So it sounds like you're up to 15. Originally, I saw it was 10 people. Do you know anybody else that you're competing against besides Sherman Lee?
A girl named Kiana Clay is going to be out there. And she's motocross. There's guys from road racing. There's guys from motocross. And I don't know. I think Sherman and I and Jake McCulloch. Jake McCulloch runs that. He runs one of those Mert prosthetic arms, which is pretty awesome. And he's going to be there. I hadn't seen him in a while, but it's really cool. And it's really cool how everybody has chipped in. It's just, I don't even know what to say. I'm excited about going. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody, and I really think we can raise some awareness because there's just a handful of people. There's probably just a handful of amputees that are cyclists. I don't even know what the percentage is, but it just lets you know. It doesn't matter what you call a disability. We'll just call it an excuse. What your excuse is, there's always. I know there's always a way He's like, well, yeah, I can't do this, I can't do that. I was like, yeah, you can.
That's right.
Yeah, you can. You can. So it's going to be cool, man. California, I don't know. California's California. It's it'll be 70 and sunny every day. We've I just opened up a compound up in upstate South Carolina. We've got mountain bike trails in the backyard, and we're going to do like mini bike races. And cool. I'm just kind of been working on the farm, and we've kind of been getting that going on around here. But Mo from Lang Brothers just sent me my leathers, and they are awesome. I've been working with her because I'm a Helite distributor for those Helite air vests.
Right.
So we just we're incorporating the air suits into the leathers. I've got some youth models coming in. I hooked up AJ Thompson's boy. He's like 12 or 13, but we just got the smaller ones in. And for the kids, those things are just super cool. I mean, you're just really, really, really fortunate to get them. I got hit by a car about 3 months ago, and I bounced off the door, so I got to test drive it in person. I guarantee you they work.
Awesome. So can you tease me on your leathers? What's the new color scheme, or same old colors? What are we looking for?
They are black and chrome and got yellow lightning bolts on the legs.
Oh, yeah. Lightning.
I said, make me look like a disco. We'll see. I think the Racing Jason's probably going to stick. I know. I'll never live that down. We'll be like, man, you can't just go out. You can't just go out and change your nickname.
you can if you're fast enough, I guess. I mean, if you win this race, maybe we change your nickname.
All right. I always like Racing.
Anyways, before I let you go, you're the first part of this episode, but you're coming on right before the man himself, Mert Lawwill. How does that make you feel?
Rock on, dude. What an honor. That guy's like super legendary. He has done so many good things for the community. I think he used to work for like Yeti Bikes. Used to build some fast Harleys.
Yep. He built some fast mountain bikes too. Anyways, hey man, thanks for stopping by, telling us about the all adaptive race. Good luck out there in California, and keep it on 2 wheels.
Listen, hey, thank you so much, Scotty. I really appreciate you, man. Y'all take care. I'll see you soon.
Solid. Always solid, dude. Like
you've been saying that all day today. Is that your favorite word today?
What, solid or dude?
Yeah, solid.
Oh yeah, solid. Today, I guess that's my word. What?
All right. Dude, when I first started announcing, I would get stuck on words like I remember I was in Kilgore, Texas.
Yeah.
And I got stuck on coming at you.
Coming at you
off of tournament 4, or coming at you off of tournament 2. I said it over and over.
Yeah.
And somebody finally texted me.
It said, "Stop saying."
Call me out. And I was still a rookie, and I was like, man, I was saying it every lap almost.
It's crazy, man. I've started making my own content where I'm sitting there like talking, and I go back and watch it, and I'm like, I should never be on a microphone because I say a lot live, but the podcast I get to cut it out. So the
and the are just kind of like filler words
100%.
While you're trying to think of what else to say.
Yep.
And I was taught that I was taught that in Chicago when I worked for Monster Jam, actually.
Yeah.
And it's something that I focused on really hard at first. Now I don't even think about it. I just keep talking. So your brain has to stay a few steps ahead of your mouth, if that makes any sense.
I can never separate the two. And my mouth is usually way ahead of my brain. But whatever. That's why I like to edit these things, because I can make myself sound a little better. But whatever. All
right.
So those who heard the end of that first interview know what's up next. And we're like 5-6 hours after we did this interview, and I'm still like shaking. Sorry.
I'll have to admit, Carter, I was nervous about this one. Dude. I don't normally get nervous when we talk to very many people. I just was nervous because I really don't know Mert that well.
Yeah.
I think I met him in passing a couple times. I don't even know that he could pick me out of a crowd.
Yeah.
But he was gracious enough to take the time to talk to us. And I can't wait for you fans to hear this interview.
Oh, dude. I mean, the guy's 80 years old, sharp as a tack. Like, he got so much content there into like a 30-40 minute interview. I cannot wait for people to hear it. And I don't know what else to even say about it, dude. Like, you just sense he's an amazing human being. When you and I were going into this interview, we're looking at all the stuff. We struggle with this a lot. Like, how do you get everything in one interview? You can't. It's impossible. But we tried to capture as much as we could, and kind of let Mert tell us who he is and what he's been through. So look forward to the fans hearing this one for sure.
Yeah, I really wanted to find out where he's from, how he got started in racing,
Always.
And then how he ended up in California. And I touched on some of the highlights of his career. I know there's so many more stories we could talk about his racing.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of left the On Any Sunday out of it just a little bit until the very end. One of our patrons asked us one specific question, and we'll get into that too.
Yeah.
And man, I'm just giddy right now just because of our interview today. So let's call him up.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Mert Lawwill, this is Scotty Dubler. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Scotty.
I am honored you would take time to talk to me on my podcast, and I'd like to just dive in and get right to it. Is that okay with you?
You bet. Let's go for it.
All right. So my first question is, where was the legend born?
Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. What's it like growing up there?
Well, it's kind of like a baby Denver, actually. But
Okay.
it's a lot different nowadays than it was when I was there. I mean, it was pretty much of a little hick town back in the day.
Yeah. So how did you get into motorcycles? Was it up there in Idaho?
Yes, it was in Boise there. Yeah, my brother came home with a little corgi. Do you know what a corgi is?
It's a dog, isn't it?
Well, they make a dog with that name, but this is a little scooter that they made for the military.
Okay.
And the handlebars fold down and the seat folds down, and they threw it out of the back of the airplane at World War II so that the soldiers would have something to ride when they got to the bottom of their jump.
Yeah.
So it was primarily made for the military. At any rate, my brother came home with one day, and that was my first introduction to wheels, and that would have been probably about 1948, somewhere around there.
Oh my goodness. So when did you decide you wanted to try to race one of those things?
Well, I don't know why I wanted to. I just my brother had interest in racing, but he was not a racer at all. But anyway, he took me to a car race on a flat track way back in the late 40s, and I just somehow grew an interest in it, and I just wanted to go racing. I wanted to be a part of that myself.
Okay.
So I started riding this little scooter, and the more I rode it, the better I got at it, and pretty soon I discovered I was better than my friends were at doing it. So I just concentrated on it more and more.
Okay.
And pretty soon I just focused my whole life around being a racer.
Wow. So what was it about? I mean, did you keep racing there in Boise? Because I heard the story about when you went out to Ascot and moved out there for the first time. How long did you race in Boise before you went to California?
Well, I was 21 when I left Boise. And when I left there, I belonged to the local motorcycle club, the Hawaii Motorcycle Club.
Okay.
And I was winning most of the races, not all of them, but I won most of them. And so I had a printing instructor. I was learning how to run printing presses at the high school there. And he says, "Hey, if you want to race, you got to go to Ascot." And so I loaded up my car and went to Ascot, and I'll never forget my first night there, because when I left Boise, everybody says, "Oh, those California guys, they're going to eat you up. You don't have a chance. You'll be back here in a month." And so I went down there, and I remember I got my first heat race. I got the real good hole shot, and I was first into turn one, and going down the back straightaway, I was running first, and I thought, "Oh man, this is not so hard after all." And I went into turn three, and they came by me on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
And I went, "Oh man," I was just in shock. I said, "This can't be. I'm used to winning races, not being just plowed under like that." So I studied how to ride the motorcycle at Ascot, because it's very different than any other racetrack. And I just studied it and learned how to do it. And by the middle of the year, I was qualifying for the Expert Trophy Dash.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just a junior at the time.
We could spend a whole episode just on Ascot, but what was it like racing that legendary track?
Well, it was very different. And the reason it was different is because it had so much traction. And so with that much traction, you'd go around the corner faster, of course. So you go down the straightaway, and you come into the turn, either turn one or turn three. you'd come in and you'd be going way over your head, way too fast. But you had to learn how to go ahead and grab a handful of throttle and kick the thing sideways, because we had no brakes in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kicked it sideways and turned the throttle wide open. And that was the hardest thing to learn how to do, was to go into a corner already over your head going too fast and then have to reach over and grab a handful of throttle in order to turn the bike and make it.
Wow. Who were some of the fast guys that you had to race against when you first went out there?
Oh, there was Elliott Schultz. Well, you mean in the junior class or in the expert classes? They had what they called the BSA Wrecking Crew, which was Al Gunter and Neil Keane and a few of the other guys. Can't think of them right now. At any rate, they were winning everything, and Al Gunter. So Al Gunter and I became friends, and he began to help me. And by help, why he would tell me modifications that I should make to my chassis to make it handle better for Ascot. Because being that it was long straightaways and tight corners, you had to turn real quick. Why we changed the geometry of the frame. We cut and welded and modified the frames, and every time we'd do that, I would just go a little bit faster. I had still the same restrictions, but I would go faster until I finally, in the middle of the year, I started making the expert trophy dash, which was unheard of in those days for an amateur or junior we were then, to make the expert trophy dash. But as soon as I started doing that, my help stopped. I had to figure it all out for myself. In those days, it was a lot different than now because, we made our living racing the motorcycle. So anything that you learned, you kept to yourself. You didn't tell anybody. So everything was secret. Mm-hmm. Like what gear ratio you're using or what tire pressure or anything like that.
Right.
And so that made the learning curve a little more difficult, but it also made me study harder too.
Right. I love that. I love it. So according to my research, you rode for Harley Davidson, or Harley Davidson had sponsored you from 1964 to 1977. So how did that opportunity come about? Was it because you were so fast and making those main events and Dash for Cashes as a junior?
Well, that caught the attention of Dudley Perkins, who was the Harley Davidson dealer in San Francisco.
Okay.
And every Friday night he would fly down to Los Angeles to watch the race. And so since he was down there every night, I became friends with him, and he offered me a ride at the end of the year. And I was riding BSA at the time, but I was my own mechanic. I didn't have funding, and BSA was not helping anybody. And so I had to do all my own work, and it wasn't all that good. I was still a kid then, really.
Uh-huh.
But my friends talked me into it, and obviously, as you can tell by the history, it was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed too. Looking at the history books, you won every one of your nationals, which were 15 national wins, all on Harley Davidsons.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. And
well, I was only riding Harley because, like I said, BSA they were only helping one guy. They helped Al Gunter a little bit, and they helped Dick Mann, but there was no help for anybody else. So we had to do it on our own. Okay.
All right. So you won your first national at the Sacramento Mile. Tell me about that day.
Well, that's pretty interesting because a couple of years before that, I left Boise and just traveled down to Sacramento to watch my first professional race, first national, I mean. And I remember I walked in by the grandstand and I heard the announcer, which was Roxy Rockwood at the time.
Right.
And he said, and they're going 115 miles an hour. And I went in there and looked up, and all I could see was Ressweber coming down, and all you could see was a number plate. He was so tucked in. And he got to the corner, and I said, man, you're going 115. This is a corner. You got to turn. And he just raised up and clicked the thing sideways. And my heart left me. I said, no way. People can't do that. That's impossible.
Right.
And 5 years later, I win it.
That's incredible. And your parents were there to watch you win.
That's correct. Yeah. By that time, I started to win quite a few races. So they actually tried to keep me from riding motorcycles in the beginning, but at the end, they were my strongest fans for sure.
That's amazing. You won your only championship in 1969, winning 3 races that year. Do you think winning a championship solidifies a rider as a legend in the sport? Because Steve Moorhead won 23 national wins, no championship. Will Davis, his career got cut short, but he won 31 nationals with no championship. So do you think that solidifies you as a legend in our sport, or do you think that even matters?
Oh, I don't know if that matters. I mean, sure it does. You got to win nationals for sure. But it was my life, and I was dedicated to it. That's all I did. I just focused. I had tunnel vision, So I'm good at one thing at a time.
During that Grand National Championship season, you won 3 races. Does anything stick out in that season to you, that why you won the championship, or anything like that come to mind?
Well, I think mainly it was consistency. I scored points in all kinds of racing, road racing to short track to half mile to 1 mile ovals. So I scored points in all 4 divisions, and it was just a matter of consistency. I was starting to ride good. I was winning quite a few races. Ascot was my favorite track, and I won a lot of races there. But mainly it was just consistency and going around the country.
All right.
See, what we would do in those days is we would start the season at Ascot there in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And at that time they paid 40% of the gate went to the riders.
Wow.
So, when the crowds started dropping off about mid-season, why the purses got smaller. So we'd all load up and go east, because instead of racing every Friday night, then we would race every Wednesday night in Chicago, every Thursday night and Friday night at some local fairgrounds, and then on the weekends you'd run the Nationals. So, you run 4 or 5 times a week. Pretty soon you get pretty good whether you want to or not, don't you?
Yeah, you have to if you want to eat, right?
If you want to eat. Yeah. Well, that's why there was not enough money in those days, so you had to ride all these little short tracks and everything in order to get, $20 here and $20 there to add up to make a living.
Well,
totally unlike the salaries they get nowadays.
Correct, yeah. One other thing that I found interesting, too, is you completed the flat track Grand Slam, again, all on Harley-Davidsons, but you won the 1965 Sacramento Mile, you won the 67 Castle Rock TT, Salinas Half Mile 1968, and the Houston Astrodrome, or Houston Short Track is what I have listed, in 1970. Did that mean something to you to complete that flat track Grand Slam, or was that just another...
Oh, yes. Very much. Yeah, that was a big deal, and Houston was such a big deal at that time because we would never raced indoor before, and they just filled that place full of people. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, I loved going there as a little kid to go watch the races. I don't remember how many trips we made down there, and I got a picture. My grandpa was fast novice qualifier at one point, and it was on the screen. I got a picture of it. It's an old black and white photo I have somewhere laying around here. So it was always huge to do good at Houston at the Astrodome, because that's where the season kicked off.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. Exactly.
Yeah. I heard a story about Steve McQueen, and he was a very big part of your life and helped you out through an injury. Can you explain that to us?
Well, yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting story because I had a flat tire at Daytona up on the banked wall, and so I fell off at like 150 miles an hour from this tire. In fact, I've got a photo sequence of that accident. At any rate, I had just come back and started re-racing again after injuries from there. I broke a bone in my wrist and just scrapes and bruises. But I was like a rock when you skip it across water and it goes skip, skip, skip. Mm-hmm. And I'd hit the ground and tumble around, and then it'd be silent. And it was silent like 3 times before I slowed down enough to where I could be in constant contact with the ground.
Man.
So I started racing again. Well, the first race back was Castle Rock, Washington. And Jim Rice fell in the first corner, and I hit him. And my hand slipped off the handlebar and got caught between the front forks and the frame, and it smashed it. Well, while it was being smashed there, my body was going through the air, so it took the ulna and transferred it on the other side of the radius. And so going to the hospital that night, and the doctor says, it took x-rays, and he says, well, kid, he says, there's nothing you can do when it's this bad. I'm going to give you some sedatives for tonight, and in the morning I'll come in and I'll fuse you from your knuckles to your elbow, and you're just going to have one bone for the rest of your life. So just think how you want it shaped. Do you want it to hook, or do you want it to point, or what do you want it to be like? And luckily my wife was there, and she says, no, I think we're going to find a second opinion on this. And the doctor says, well, you can, but you're wasting your time. You might as well get rid of the pain. So I was in Castle Rock, Washington State, and I was in Cal Rayburn's motorhome. So at the time that it took to drive from Washington State to San Francisco, Steve heard about it, and he called me and he said, hey, my doctor's in town doing a seminar. You got to go see him. So I took my x-rays up to his hotel room, and he just held them up to the light there in the motel room. And he says, kid, he says, you have some problems here, but I've got a guy that's better at this than I am. I want you to come to Los Angeles and see this Dr. Stark, because the first doctor I saw was Curlin, who was the Rams doctor at the time.
Okay.
And so I came back and I called Steve, and I said, oh, he wants me to go to L.A. I said, I've had a bad year. I haven't been able to race. I'm just going to have my local guy do the best he can do. And Steve said, no way. He wouldn't hear of it. He sent me the airline ticket, had his driver pick me up at the airport. They took me right into the hospital. And by that time, the bones were starting to get sticky, so we caught it just in time. In fact, the hand was used in a medical journal after that, and of how to repair broken hands.
Wow.
And the doctor explained to me what he did. He says he just opened up the back of the hand, and he says, well, this pile of pieces is going to be this bone, that pile of pieces is going to be that bone. And he just reconstructed it with, had like 7 pins going all through my hands and lower arm, keeping all the bones in place. And so by that time, of course, I'm out running the AMA insurance. But I don't know. Sure, Steve never really admitted it, but I never got a bill. He paid for everything.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, so that's being a friend.
Absolutely. That's a good friend right there. Later in your career, you retired from flat track in 1977, but you kind of started transitioning towards the end of your career, like you mentioned a moment ago, to make these bikes go faster. You'd work on things and develop things to the frames and to the motorcycles. So you started transitioning from a racer to a fabricator, even while you're still racing.
Yeah, that's true. I studied it, and then I had a good mentor, C.R. Axtell, who ran the first flow bench down in L.A., so he was both an engine man and a chassis man, and we studied things together, and I just had to go to school and learn what to do. And I learned, in fact, I would make a chassis that would handle perfect at Ascot, and I'd go back east, and because the tracks were so different, it wouldn't even qualify for the race at a back east race.
Wow.
Because the frames were so different.
That's crazy. So what led? Yeah, I can't even fathom that. I mean, you'd think a bike would be fast at every racetrack you go to, but it makes sense. I mean, I never got to race at Ascot myself, but you just have to set things up differently or learn to ride what you have. But it sounds like you weren't happy with that. You'd make them go faster however you could.
Yeah, exactly. Because like at Ascot, since it was so fast and the corners were so tight, you had to put a lot of weight bias to the front end and change the wheelbase and lower the engine in the chassis in order to, like I say, turn the throttle back on when you're already going too fast.
Yeah.
And so when you load the front end and make the front end biased towards the front, you go back east, the tracks were slippery, then all I did was just spin the wheel. You couldn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So you had to have a completely different chassis for back east than you had out west.
I gotcha. So what led to the transition to retiring to becoming, a full-time fabricator and then going on to build mountain bike frames and stuff like that?
Well, I stopped racing because I developed what they call labyrinthitis, which is too much fluid in the inner ear, and it causes a delay in your balance. And so my balance wasn't good, so I had to stop racing. But mainly I was not through racing. I still wanted to race, and that's the only profession that I knew. So I started getting different riders, and different riders rode my bikes. I won a lot of nationals with guys like Steve Moorhead and different people that would win the nationals for me, and Garth Brow was another one. So I made my living doing that until about 1990. And 1980, I guess it was. Get my years mixed up here. What's 10 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so I made my living that way for quite a while, and then I got discouraged with the rules of the AMA, and a lot of stuff that I was trying to do and test and change and everything were fastly becoming against the rules. So I got mad with the AMA, and I decided to sell everything. and I quit the race team. I think 1980 was the last race team that I ran, and then I got heavily into to bicycles, and that's kind of interesting too, because I built frames for the flat trackers with a partnership with Terry Knight with Knight Frames, and we'd build frames and I'd sell them. And at one time, we built all of the frames for the Harley factory, and my aftermarket frame was a different geometry. So at one time, every frame that was on the racetrack came through my hands one way or another, either through the Harley factory or through my private one. Wow. So that led to making all these frames. So one night, Terry and I were talking, and he says, this BMX thing is getting pretty big. Let's make some BMX frames. So I go into my local bicycle shop down here, the Koski brothers, and I said, I think I'll make some BMX frames. And they said, oh, no, you got to make a mountain bike. And I said, well, what's a mountain bike? Because I didn't even know yet. And so he gave me a frame to use as a test model, as a sample. And Terry and I made some mountain bike frames starting in the late 70s. And I had a hard time getting dealers because I called it the Lawwill mountain bike. And every dealer would say, well, we don't go in the mountains. We don't need a mountain bike. So, and now you'd have to use the name mountain bike to even be successful. So I changed the name from mountain bike to Pro Cruiser because cruisers were big. Well, instantly I had dealers every place, all over the country, even in Hawaii.
Wow.
And so I was just ahead of my time as far as naming the bicycle frame.
Wow.
So I made somewhere between 300 and 400 of those bicycle frames, and there's a collector club even to this day now about the Pro Cruiser Lawwill bicycle frames.
That's so cool. So not only you're in the AMA Hall of Fame, but you went on to become in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, that's just awesome.
Yeah, well, actually, I was in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame first.
Man.
Yeah, and I made my living racing motorcycles, but I'm in the Bicycle Hall of Fame.
I guess
it didn't make sense early on.
It took the folks at the AMA to wake up and figure out what they were missing, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, let's talk about from fabricating bikes and motorcycles into prosthetics. What led to this transition?
Well, Chris Dreyer and I were factory Harley riders. Both of us raced for Harley, and we traveled together. And he was in a bad accident at Sedalia, Missouri. What happened was it was a half mile or a mile? Forgotten. A short mile, I believe, is what it was. At any rate, it was very dusty, and we were coming down the front straightaway, and it was so dusty that Chris couldn't see where he was going, so he didn't turn quick enough, and he slid down. And when he slid down, why, there was a guardrail around the outside of the racetrack because they raced automobiles there as well. And so one of these 12-by-12 posts that was holding up the guardrail, he was sliding along just with his body, and he hit that post. Well, that took off his left arm.
Oh, my gosh.
And so among everything else, I had to call his parents and tell him that, well, he's had a bad accident, and the doctors told me there's no chance. You can come if you want, but there's no way he's going to make it. Because he not only took the arm off, he broke his hips, he broke his legs, arms, everything. It was a mess. So his dad came, and they decided to rehabilitate, and they got him going again. But so after he got going, well, then he says, hey, I want you to make me a prosthetic, a hand, starting with a hand and then an arm. And I said, well, I don't know anything about prosthetics. And that's why I said when the first one that I made him, he took it for a test ride and came back and said, that's the worst thing that I ever tried. So from that I learned that your knuckles are where they are, your wrist is where it is, your elbow's where it is, and if you don't mimic all of these things exactly, an amputee will tell you instantly that, no, something's wrong, doesn't work. So even though I said, how do you know? You don't even have an arm. How can you tell me if it's right or not?
Wow. Yeah.
But your brain is hardwired, It knows what's right and what's not.
Wow. That's incredible.
So anyway, I made one, and so after I learned that you got to put these energy transfers precisely as what the real human body does, then I made the second hand, and that's made almost no change from that second hand to what I'm in production with today.
That's crazy.
It started out slow, and the reason that I got into it too, because not only did I make him the first test hand and the first hand that really worked, and he says, I travel a lot, and he says, I'm afraid I'm going to get where I'm going, and my hand is in the luggage, and they're going to lose the luggage, and then I'll get to the race meet and I won't be able to ride.
Yeah.
So he says, I want you to make me a backup. So this was 10 years later, because this started in about 80, and so about 90. So I called some prosthetic companies and said, I think I'll make some prosthetic hands. What do you think? And they all advised me against it. They said, no way. He said, first of all, 90% of somebody that does not have a hand, the world's over, he can't do anything. And if those is left, there ain't nobody that'd want to ride a motorcycle or a bicycle. Wow. And I got thinking to myself, I said, bullcrap, they just don't know they can do it.
Right.
So instead of making one, I went to my friend Dave Garut at DKG, and he's got a CNC shop. So we worked out a design, and we made just 20 of them on the first go-around as a test, see how it would go. And it took me 6 months or a year to get rid of the first 20, but I got over 350 of those prosthetic hands in circulation now.
Wow.
So it turns out that, they just didn't know they could do it.
Yeah.
But once they learned they could ride, it just gives these kids kind of their life back again. They can go do what they wanted to do all along.
That's so crazy. I love it. I've heard some amazing stories of some folks whose lives you've changed forever for the better because of your prosthetics. Which one of the stories stick out in your mind?
Well, it's Jake McCulloch out of Chicago. He was born without a hand. So he was trying to race motocross, and he's a back marker, of course, doing it all with one arm. Mm-hmm. And so the kids were at that age, he was like a teenager. They're kind of mean, they're saying, how you doing today, Gimp, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so he became real withdrawn and just, I'm here, but nobody needs to see me. And then he saw a little film clip that I did with Chris Dreyer about the hand, and Chris was talking about how good the hand worked and everything. So he and his dad, they called me, and they wanted to try one, so I got him a hand. And it took him out of the closet, so to speak, and put him on stage, and he became a motivational speaker for Shriners even.
Wow.
For somebody that was hiding in the closet to become a motivational speaker, I thought was a pretty big step.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
So it changed his life completely.
And it sounds
in fact, he's coming out for this race that is coming up here, this flat track race that we have.
That's perfect. That was exactly what I want to talk to you about next. The first ever AMA adaptive race is coming up in Sonoma, California on 11, 20, and 21. Are you going out there? And how many riders?
Of course, yes.
Okay, good. How many riders? I think there's 10 riders. Do they all have
there's 10
support
signed
from
up
you?
that I'm aware of, yeah. So a bunch of them, they want to come by and meet me before the event, so they'll all be here the Friday night before, and we'll just have a social gathering here at my house, and then we'll go out to the race the next day.
I know our friend Jason Griffin has no right arm, so he doesn't have a prosthetic. How many of these riders have you helped out, and how many have the Mert Lawwill prosthetics?
Well, there's only going to be 3 of them entered at this particular race, but like I said, I've got over 350 of those prosthetic hands in circulation now. So that's a bunch of people out there, that's not a big number for manufacturing, but it is if you're one of that 350 and you get your life back again, then it's a big deal.
Absolutely. How cool is it to see a race with only adaptive racers in it?
Oh, I think that's just outstanding. I'll go back to my earlier statement when I called the prosthetic companies and said, don't bother. Nobody wants to ride a bicycle or a motorcycle. And now they're having a whole race that's just for them.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I love it that they're doing that. Of course, there's going to be other classes involved. It's not just, this one race, but I'm glad that they are including the adaptive race in this big event. Yes,
I am too. I'm really, really happy with it. That's why I'm supporting it diligently.
Awesome. Do you watch the races today, the American Flat Track right now? Are you current with
I watch that, but I'm mainly a fan of MotoGP.
Oh, right on. I haven't watched any MotoGP. I did hear Marc Marquez is going to skip the next 2 rounds to focus on getting better for next year. I just heard that today.
Yes, that's I read that as well.
All right. What are your current thoughts on the sport of American Flat Track? Do you think it's on the rise again? I mean, we're on national TV and stuff like that. I know you said you're more into the MotoGP, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, back in the beginning when I first went to Ascot, there were so many riders that they'd have even-numbered riders one night. The next Friday night, you'd have the odd-number riders. There was that many, and there's too many entries to count almost. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of died off, and it kind of went into nowhere, where just not much was going on. And I thought a lot of it was the rules making of the AMA, but that was just my personal thought.
Okay.
And so now to see it come back to where they have that many riders once again is a very thrilling thing. So I'm very highly supportive of the AMA flat track now.
Awesome. We kind of left out the movie On Any Sunday kind of on purpose because I'm sure you get asked about it a lot. But we have people that support our podcast, and they're called patrons. And one of our patrons asked us to ask you, what is your favorite Bruce Brown memory?
Well, you mean part of the film, you mean?
It doesn't matter. Any Bruce Brown memory. What's your favorite one?
Yeah, well, his favorite part of the film, and mine as well, is when I'm walking down the street with a business suit, and then it flashes to a flat track where I'm going sideways.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that transition period. That's his favorite film clip of the movie.
Yeah.
But he was such a character. I mean, he's just so full of personality that, he traveled with me because he says, I don't want this thing to be a made-up Hollywood movie. He says, I want it to be the real thing. So he actually came to my house here in San Francisco, jumped in the van with me, and we drove together back east, cross country. And because he wanted it to be authentic. He wanted it to be the real thing.
That's so cool.
He's such a good personality. I mean, you just have a tummy ache from laughing all the time. He's such a character.
Yeah. Well, that movie inspired so many people to start racing. I'm really good friends with Ronnie Jones, and he said it was just because of On Any Sunday it was the reason him and his brother started racing flat tracks. So I just think it's so cool, man. I love the movie. I still watch it from time to time.
It's amazing. How can a movie be 50 years old and you still want to watch it?
I know. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
just one funny little thing, just a little tidbit that I just thought of here. When I first met Steve and was going to do the filming of down on the beaches, why we stayed at Bruce's house there in San Clemente.
Okay.
And we went into the kid's bedroom, and Steve and I walked in together, and he looked around the wall and he says, "Don't your kids ever go to the movies?" Because there was no Steve McQueen pictures anywhere. It was all motorcycles.
Oh, I love it. I love that. That's great. That is so cool. Just recently, you got to spend some time with a friend of ours, Evan Send, who we've met through this podcast, and he's an enthusiast now. He's hooked on flat track like we are. He's doing a movie on the XR 750. It's a little short film. We don't want to give away too much information about the film, but do you have anything that you could tease about your part in this movie?
Well, he came by and he stayed. He says, "I'll just shoot for a couple hours. Give me a couple hours." We ended up staying, till late at night. Because we just had so much to talk about.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed Evan very much. He was a good guy.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the movie and especially to see your part in the movie. I think it's going to be great.
Well, there's another part that's probably not been made a big deal of, but back in the day, the AMA was trying to look professional. So, first of all, only men could be in the pits, no women.
Okay.
And second of all, you had to wear whites.
Right.
So the idea was to look professional.
Okay.
And I had my baby Joe, and June was with me, and she said, "No, I'm not going to sit in the stands." She said, "I'm coming down in the pits where I was." And so she bucked the AMA, and the referee, Red was his name. Well, he was so upset about that women were in the pits. That was just unprofessional. But she broke the bubble, and women started to be allowed in the pits.
That's so cool because they're in the pits now, and almost every rider
big time.
Every rider has a wife or a girlfriend. They're in the pits, and actually we have some girls racing too. So I'm glad
that's come a long way.
Yeah, we owe that all to your wife.
Well, nobody hardly knows it, but I know that's where it started.
That's so cool. Well, tell her thank you for us for sure. We're nearing the end of the podcast, and my grandma, which is Graham, she has a question in every podcast, and she's been watching you your entire career. My grandfather raced along the same times, but so she's been to a lot of nationals. But she just wants to know, you're about the same age, she thinks, but she wants to know, will you ever slow down?
I don't think so. I'm 80 now.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. No reason to slow down now, right?
Not now. No. Not till I tip over.
There you go. Well, I've had a lot of fun with you, and here to finish up the podcast, we have some rapid fire questions. So tell me the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you these next few questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
I think I know the answer to this one, but what's the favorite bike you've ever ridden?
Well, for many years it was the BSA Gold Star, but that's how I started my racing career, riding for the BSA dealer there in Boise, Idaho. Mm-hmm. And the BSA guys were my heroes, and Harley guys, they were bad news. I didn't want anything to do with them then. But then after I got to be on a Harley, in the end, the KR Flathead was one of my favorites, because you could race it all year long, and you rebuild it once in the winter and once in the summer, and you could race after race after race. Versus the work that it takes to keep a XR 750 running nowadays.
Okay, all right. What is your favorite racetrack?
But I'm also very partial to the XR 750 because I did an awful lot of co-development work with CR Axtell on that thing, and Dick O'Brien. And Bill Warner did an awful lot, too, of developing with that engine.
Yeah, we talked to him last week, and that's exactly what he said. He said, you had a tough season when they filmed you on Any Sunday because you're running the old cast iron XR 750, and it wasn't until like the year after that before they started not having as many problems.
That's right. Well, because the reason it had the problems is because it was a cast iron engine, so it ran too hot. But B, all the inside geometry was incorrect. The border stroke ratio, the rod length ratio, all of those were incorrect for a race bike. But it was never meant to be a race bike. I mean, it was meant to be a street bike.
Yep. Wow.
So the end of that story is that it melted down almost every week, or something would break. And so you're so busy doing all of the major overhauls to get the thing back on the track again that you didn't have time for the little stuff like my broken throttle cable at Columbus. Little stuff like that would catch up to you because you didn't have time. You're doing the big stuff first.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Next question on the rapid fire is, what's your favorite racetrack?
Ascot, without a doubt.
Okay. Who's the greatest flat tracker of all time?
Oh, I don't know about necessarily flat tracker. There's a couple of great ones. Dick Mann is one of them, and Kenny Roberts. Kenny Roberts could ride anywhere. We used to go trail riding together, and boy, he would ride like a wild man. You couldn't believe it, what he could get away with.
Oh yeah.
But those were my two favorite racers.
Okay, I like it. Who's your favorite person to go bench racing with?
Oh, anybody that wants to talk, I guess.
I love that. That's my favorite answer to that question so far. The next one is they've had some rough years here lately. Do you think Harley's ever going to make a comeback?
Well, it looks like this year they're already starting that. They're starting to win some events with their new motor. And I studied engines for years. I mean, that was one of my fortes. And so I understand all the mechanical dimensions inside the engine as well. And I've been puzzled all along that it's actually taken them this long to become competitive, because that's a good engine. I mean, it should be really good.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. I've heard people having troubles hooking the horsepower. They say they've got plenty of horsepower. They're just having trouble hooking them up. So maybe it's not the engine. Maybe it's the chassis. I don't know. I'm not that smart.
Well, I'm a chassis guy, so I'm going to blame the chassis.
There you go. All right. I like it. And my last question to you, we kind of borrow from Dave Despain, who's one of my heroes. What are you most proud of?
Of course, getting the number one. And the other thing is just being a part of On Any Sunday.
Awesome. Mert Lawwill, you are an amazing person. I really appreciate the time. Before we let you go, do you want to say thanks to anybody?
Well, probably anybody that's in the motorcycle world. I love them all.
So cool. Mert, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it.
You got it.
I think a lot of the times when we do what we do or we talk about these people, the word legend is thrown around a lot. Like, if there ever was a legend in the sport, this guy's it. And we just talked to him, dude.
A former Grand National champion. He's done probably more for the sport than we would ever even get to talk about. Building bikes, changing things on motorcycles, just because he was a rider and he knew what he needed to do to make the bike go faster. That's incredible. And then what he did after that, and what he's continuing to do at 80 years old. He's just amazing. Such a great person, and I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, a lot of people say he was like groundbreaking as a rider because not a lot of riders were looking at how to make their own motorcycles fast, and he did that. And I don't know, I think what he did after he got off the motorcycle is a testament to any rider that's ridden in the past or is riding today. Life isn't over after you quit racing motorcycles. You can take that passion, you can take that drive and put it into something else and be just as or more successful than you ever were on a motorcycle. And I think that Mert is the perfect example of that. And man, I'm gonna be shaking my head in disbelief for we had Bill Warner last week, Mert Lawwill this week. You gotta pinch me, dude. I'm waking up like, is this real? Like this podcast that we did and we're putting together, like it's gotten to the point where we're talking to the Michael Jordans and like of flat track. Like how? I mean, we put a lot of work into it, but damn, man, it's super cool.
Right. It is pretty cool, and for him to be gracious to take the time out of his morning. We called him early this morning out in California time. Yeah. It was great. The stories after we stopped recording were just as good. He got a little bit more into the off the Sunday. I feel bad though, because when they followed him on the movie, they were still working on the XR, and it had the iron cases and had a lot of mechanical issues, and he could have been a repeat champion if they maybe weren't working on the iron cast XR. If he still run the KR, he could have repeated as a champion. It's the ifs, coulda, shoulda, all that stuff. But a talented rider completed the flat track Grand Slam. As soon as I said that, before I could even finish saying it, he said how important that was to him.
Yeah.
No,
it's a big deal, and the loyalty that he showed to Harley is pretty cool and unique. A lot of riders sometimes rode the same stuff, but they didn't have the success that he had on it. And to stick with them after that fame and all that attention, it just speaks to his character as well. I'm gonna listen back to this one myself. I listen to it when we record. I probably listen to it 2 or 3 times when we edit, but I'm gonna go back and probably listen to this one a couple times more because what a story. Love that dude.
It was such a great one. I guess we don't have to say goodbye because I'm going to see you tomorrow.
Damn right.
Technically.
You're going to be down here tomorrow. I'm picking you up from the airport tomorrow night. And depending on how long you stay, man, I might be sick of you by the time you head back home.
Well, right now I have a one-way flight because you said I could move in with you. We didn't approve that through Boo.
Yeah,
but...
just hang out down here until the start of the 2021 season, and we'll do weekly shows here. That'll be great.
Sounds fun. Yeah. I'll bring my Mac. I'll bring my microphone and my headphones.
Yeah.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Love it. All right, dude. Safe travels down. Look forward to seeing you on the Patreon next week. Hopefully, I'll get all this shit in order and YouTube will work. It's a process, but you're here to see it all happen. So when it's actually a show, like well-oiled machine, you could say, I've been there from the beginning.
There you go. No. Thanks to all of our followers. Thanks for all of our patrons. Follow us on Patreon. We're going to try to make some content for you this upcoming week while I'm down in Florida. Everybody, keep it on 4 wheels. If you're on 2 wheels, keep it on 2 wheels. And we'll talk to you next week.
Peace.
Later.
I'm kind of new to the world, man. I'm 4 years in, but I've definitely caught the bug. You're not going to believe this, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this to the Mert Lawwill, but I'm hitting 40 in December, and I've never thrown a leg over a motorcycle, so I got to solve that here soon. But
oh boy, yeah, you do. Why don't you watch this film called On Any Sunday? You'll like it.
Oh man,